Hello everybody, I am Young Semicolon, an aspiring character designer and animator, and I kind of just want to let you guys in on my process of making character designs, or this world I've been developing based on Mesoamerican culture, and specifically Aztec culture. In this first set of characters, the average citizen you'd see is kind of what I was going for. So we have like an emo man during that time, a sun-loving fiend, a set of twins, and a archetypical warrior. The second group of characters follows medieval fantasy tropes. So you see a king, you see a knight, you see a jester, a crazy freak, and a ghost, just because I wanted to do it. In the third group, we have twins again, god of the underworld, based on Mayan culture is hopefully what I'm going to go for there, and an eagle warrior and Xolotl, which is the god of monsters in Aztec culture, and lightning and twins. So starting off with Searing Skin, this is kind of my rip of Evangelion. A lot of these are kind of focused on my rendition of stories I like. So the first one, Searing Skin, is like if I made Evangelion. The second one is if I made my Lord of the Rings. I'm showing you guys right now what I call a ref sheet. It's not really a reference sheet, it's more like an exploration sheet. I'm used to primarily sketching by hand. I'm fairly new to digital. I've only had a tablet and a laptop over the last 2 years, really. So lots of things I've been doing is super new to me. I'm still honestly not used to a keyboard and mouse setup. I am definitely not used to hotkeys in general. I grew up on an Xbox controller, so this is just not really my lane. But I love drawing, and I love the way digital art has that like finished look, at least when it comes to line, and just the range of color you can get. So I want to start with like the most basic civilian-esque characters. With Yaddle, his first design kind of had this cape and a much more side ponytail, and I kind of wanted to make his character a lot more focused and a lot more centered. So I moved his ponytail to the middle. I made sure that the square was kind of his main shape language. His body followed a square design overall, and I didn't really want to break from that. A big difficulty was making the twins look like twins, just because Otzi's face isn't really visible, and I feel like a big thing for Otzi is in the story is kind of not talking or not really communicating verbally. So I kind of wanted to even shut her off more. Originally, most of these characters were designed as what if emos and goths. It doesn't really translate anymore, but what if emos and goths exist in the Mesoamerican world? But that was kind of lost. We still have remnants of it with like Otzi's big bangs covering her face, Itotia's skull mask, and the bone jewelry he kind of has going on, the rib cage. And I wanted those to be complemented by the more outgoing characters that were Yaddle and Xochi, who very clearly look like stereotypical. I mean, I would say they all look like stereotypically Aztec characters, but more so they looked very Aztec. Just like a lady with a headdress and a warrior. I also kind of did some character sheets for some of these guys, although I'm gonna kind of hold off for that last now, because I just want to get the basic balance of these characters going. I kind of want to start line up first, then get into character sheets, which I think is a more common practice, I'm pretty sure. Trying to portray a character with one pose is really difficult, but it's also really fun, and it's the most engaging. That's why I draw characters primarily. I really don't like touching buildings, or as soon as perspective and horizon lines and all that becomes the main focus, I kind of have a lot of difficulty, and that's something I really need to get out of my comfort zone and start doing. But for this, I wanted to focus on creating a solid lineup for each of these. I went through a few renditions of trying to make Itotia and his entire gang. A big problem I ran into was not having designs complex enough, and I still feel like the final design isn't really all too complex, which it's a balancing act because I don't know whether to make them more complex because they are supposed to be the lowest like fidelity of complexity, I guess. I don't know how else to phrase it, but they are supposed to seem down to earth in a way, as opposed to the ones we see later on. But that's the gang. On the left we have Itotia, followed by Yaddle, Atsi, Sila Likwe, and Zochi. I'd like to hear your feedback. I'd like to hear ideas or just general criticisms. Okay, into part 2, Those Afflicted. Currently, you're looking at a reference sheet of like basically every sketchbook drawing I've had of this character, and my girlfriend's as well. Hers are labeled in red, if you're interested. But I've actually done this live action before, and I'm a film student, or I was a film student. I'm now an animation student. But when filming it in live action, I kind of had this epiphany that this really isn't my thing, and that I do enjoy the mysticality of character design. I do enjoy the mysticality of being put into another world that feels completely like another world. And that's something almost uniquely animation. The proportions can be whatever you want. You can play with it in live action, but it's extremely expensive, and I do not have the assets for that. So I prefer drawing a lot more. But El Chaneki is basically my Gollum esque character. He's this guy who's obsessed with this Bach, which he randomly stumbled upon. I've been playing around a lot with a mask. Currently, as I'm recording this, I'm not done designing these characters, so I probably will do a version with his mask on and his mask off. His initial design was a lot more stone-faced because he is based on the stone sculpture that I once saw. But in conversation and in exploration, my girlfriend kind of pointed out that him having a much more droopy face, him looking like he has sagging skin, would feel more primalistic and more monsterish. So that's definitely the direction I went in, as well as having long arms and lanky limbs. With the cast of Those Afflicted, the main character being a fisherman who's very down on his luck, a militant warrior, a monarch, and a jester whose pure heart clashes with the world around him, and another mythical being residing in the river, La Llorona. Mexican folklore pits her as a woman grieving the loss of her children. Kind of really bad at script writing. This is kind of my first time really talking about my process on the internet, but I'm very much a iteration-based person. Most of my designs really seem to marinate. The first designs I had either really didn't fit the character, the posing was weird. A big part of this series, or a big goal for this series, or these videos I intend on making, is building the world. I'm like building out this world I'm trying to create. So I need to develop what the baseline for this is. I'm still not sure if I want to delve into fantasy races or magic. I feel like magic systems are in play, or I could just have monsters and spirits of the sort interact with these cast of characters, which is definitely what you see in this short story. For the most part, I was focused on historical, quote-unquote historical accuracy, just trying to get the silhouettes and types of clothes you'd see from these people at this time. But that doesn't usually make for the funnest designs. A lot of people as of late have been comparing Marvel Rivals to Marvel Avengers, specifically that one Black Panther skin, where you see a much more accurate time I don't know, I actually haven't done any research into that, but what I presume is a much more time accurate, historically accurate depiction of that outfit, to like him wearing a panther pelt, but it looks super sick. And I mean, I'm not sure if I want to push my designs all the way to like Marvel Rivals proportions and design language, but I do prefer that visually. I struggled a lot with the design of Nekawala simply because I wasn't sure what I wanted going into it. The original design had a very bodycon silhouette, which doesn't really fit in the Aztec world, so I started thinking about possible animals. If they have a jaguar warrior then what could be an animal that suits him, and I went with birds as if he were a parrot or some kind of pet of the monarch, which kind of really helped define the kinds of shapes I was looking for in the design, making him a lot more like slicked, big wings, or not big wings, but large sleeves, but still having a sense of playfulness. I just wanted to add that a lot of these character designs, in the initial renditions of me making them, I'm not really thinking about shape language or rhythm. I'm mostly exploring their personality or finding what kind of traits I can manipulate. The whole point of the lineup is to kind of develop them as a crew, find out what I want to push, and how they can stand out from each other. As Yaddle and both the Jaguar Warrior are like stereotypical warrior characters, what's the differences I can find between them? Because I could have two big, strong, burly men, or I could find a different way to separate them. So I have Yaddle being a stereotypically large, I have Yaddle being a bigger character, whilst the Jaguar Warrior focuses much more on speed, and I want him to feel more agile, so I kept his body much more nimble. Even for a character such as La Llorona, I wanted her to be a tall character, but having two tall women in this you have Citlalique and La Llorona, but I wanted her to feel different from that, so I kind of added this almost bug-like carapace. I ended up changing the monarch to be much more gold focused, just because I didn't really like the way green was going. There's a lot of green in all these characters, and that might change going forward. But yeah, that's the final lineup. We have on the left La Llorona, Cax, Coyashok, Nekawal, and Oatly. Yeah, so that's all for today. I'm only going over the first two stories. I intend on making a part 2. I have no idea when it's coming out, but I do intend on making one. I'm actively writing these stories as I'm making these videos, so these characters' final designs here are subject to change just because the stories aren't finalized. So yeah, next time I'm going to focus a little more on the actual developing of shape language and rhythm. So see you guys there.